April 7, 1945. South of Kyushu, Japan's greatest battleship, Yamato, moves silently through rough seas, escorted by a handful of destroyers. Her destination, Okinawa. Her mission, suicide. This is the true story of Operation Tengo, Japan's final desperate attempt to strike back against the overwhelming U.S. Navy. The day the world's largest battleship went down in flames, marking the end of the battleship era forever. In the late 1930s, as war loomed, Japan's naval engineers began constructing a secret weapon. Under the guise of Special Project No. 1, they built the Yamato-class battleships, Yamato and her sister ship Musashi. Each was over 72,000 tons fully loaded, the largest and most heavily armed warships ever built. Her main guns were monstrous, 9 18.1-inch cannons, the largest naval guns ever mounted on a warship. Each shell weighed nearly 3,000 pounds and could strike targets more than 25 miles away. To the Japanese Navy, Yamato represented national pride, a floating fortress meant to guarantee victory against any Western fleet. But by the time Yamato was launched in 1941, the age of the battleship was already ending. At Pearl Harbor, carrier-based aircraft proved that the future of naval warfare was in the skies, not the guns. While Yamato patrolled the Pacific proudly, she rarely saw action. She was too valuable to risk, and too slow to hide. Her sister ship Musashi met her end during the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, overwhelmed by 19 torpedoes and 17 bombs from American carrier planes. That battle made one thing clear: no ship, no matter how big, could survive swarms of carrier-based aircraft. Still, Japan refused to surrender. By early 1945, Japan was cornered. American forces had captured Iwo Jima and were closing in on Okinawa, just 340 miles from the Japanese mainland. In desperation, the Imperial Navy devised Operation Tengo, a plan for Yamato to sail south, beach herself on Okinawa, and fight as a stationary gun battery until destroyed. It was a suicide mission. The ship was given just enough fuel for a one-way trip. Her crew of 3,300 men knew there would be no return. Yet they volunteered anyway, a final gesture of loyalty to the Emperor. At dawn on April 6, 1945, Yamato left Tokuyama Bay with 9 escorts, 1 light cruiser, and 8 destroyers. The fleet was spotted almost immediately by American submarines and aircraft. By the next morning, U.S. Navy Task Force 58 was on the hunt, a massive fleet of carriers, battleships, and hundreds of aircraft. On April 7, 1945, as Yamato approached open water south of Kyushu, radar picked up approaching planes. More than 380 U.S. carrier aircraft from USS Essex, USS Intrepid, USS Bennington, and others were closing in. The Battle of the East China Sea was about to begin. Shortly after noon, the first wave of Curtiss SB-2C Helldivers and Grumman TBF Avengers attacked. Yamato opened fire with her. Massive anti-aircraft batteries, over 150 guns blazing. The sea erupted in fire and smoke, but the attackers came from every direction, dive bombers from above, torpedo planes from both sides. One torpedo hit to port, then another. The ship began to list. Within minutes, her decks were burning. Bombs struck her forward turret, detonating secondary explosions. Yet Yamato kept fighting. Gunners fired manually after power failed, some continuing to shoot as flames spread around them. At 2:23 p.m., Yamato took a devastating series of torpedo hits on her port side. At least 10 confirmed. She began to capsize. Inside, engineers attempted to flood starboard compartments to balance the list. But it was too late. At 2:45 p.m., an internal explosion ripped through the ship, likely the detonation of the forward magazine. A mushroom cloud rose nearly 20,000 feet into the sky, visible over 100 miles away. In a matter of seconds, the pride of the Imperial Navy was gone. Of her crew, only about 280 men survived. Over 3,000 sailors perished. it remains one of the largest single-ship losses of life in naval history. American pilots flying overhead were awestruck by the explosion's size. One wrote, "It looked like the entire ocean had erupted." The wreck of Yamato sank in 1,400 feet of water, roughly 200 kilometers southwest of Kyushu. For Japan, it was more than just a naval loss. It was symbolic. The empire's largest ship had gone down without ever engaging another battleship. The age of steel giants was over. Less than 4 months later, Japan would surrender. In 1985, Japanese divers confirmed the wreck's location using sonar and underwater cameras. The ship lies in 2 massive sections, shattered by internal explosions. The Imperial chrysanthemum crest still adorns the bow, corroded but unmistakable. In 2015, Japan's NHK network produced the most detailed 3D mapping of the wreck ever made, confirming damage patterns consistent with the U.S. Navy's attack reports. Today, Yamato rests silently at the bottom of the sea, a monument to courage, sacrifice, and a vanished era of naval warfare. Yamato's story became a national symbol, both of tragedy and pride. For Japan, it represented the warrior spirit pushed to its extreme. For historians, it marks the end of the battleship age and the rise of air power. Her name has since inspired museums, films, and even the fictional spaceship Yamato in Japanese pop culture, a tribute to resilience and remembrance. But history never forgets the truth. Yamato was not defeated by a greater ship. She was defeated by a new kind of warfare, one she was never built to survive. The sinking of the Yamato wasn't just the death of a ship, it was the death of an idea. The idea that power could be measured in armor and guns alone. When she sank beneath the waves, so did the battleship era itself. Her story remains one of the most powerful reminders in history that even the mightiest creations of man must eventually yield to change.